What if I told you the exact thing that keeps most people broke is the same tool the wealthiest people on earth use to build generational wealth? Debt. Most people run from it. The rich run toward it. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why, and more importantly, how to start thinking like the top 1%. So stay with me, because most people never figure this out. Here's the truth nobody teaches you in school. There are exactly two kinds of debt in this world, and they are not the same thing. Bad debt is money you borrow to buy things that lose value the second you own them. A car loan, a TV on a payment plan, a vacation you put on a credit card. You borrowed money, the thing dropped in value, and now you're paying interest on top of a loss. And that right there is the trap. That's the kind of debt that keeps the average person broke their entire life. Now, good debt is the complete opposite. It's money you borrow to buy something that generates income that covers the loan and leaves profit behind. A rental property, a business, inventory that sells for more than you paid, even investments. When used correctly, the asset works for you. The debt pays for itself. That's the game the rich are playing. And nobody told you the rules. Now let's talk about one of the most important concepts in wealth building. OPM. Other people's money. This is where everything starts to shift. If you have $50,000, most people think that means you can buy something worth $50,000. And that's it. But wealthy people think differently. They ask, how can I use this to control something bigger? So instead of buying a $50,000 asset outright, they use that money as a down payment. They borrow from the bank. And now they control a $200,000 asset, even $250,000 asset, same money, bigger opportunity. Now, if that asset produces income, that income covers the loan, and whatever is left over goes to you. You just multiplied your buying power without using your own money. That's leverage. And that right there is the foundation of almost every large fortune. Now let's break it down with real numbers, because this is where it really clicks. You buy a rental property for $200,000. You put 20% down. That's $40,000 out of pocket. The bank covers the rest. Your mortgage is about $900 a month. Now you rent it out for $1,400 a month. That's $500 in your pocket every single month. But it gets better. Your tenant is paying down your loan, so your debt is shrinking over time. The property itself is likely going up in value, and inflation is making that fixed debt smaller every year. So you've got cash flow, equity growth, and appreciation, all happening at the same time. You invested $40,000. You're making about $6,000 a year. That's around a 15% return. And you didn't need $200,000 to start. The bank gave you most of it. That's how this works. That's how real wealth starts to build. Now here's the part that really makes people pause. When you use debt to invest, the interest you pay is often tax deductible. That means the government is literally reducing your taxable income because of the debt you're using. So think about that. You're making money, and at the same time, your costs are being reduced through taxes. That's why someone earning large amounts from real estate might only pay taxes on a fraction of it, because mortgage interest and depreciation lower what's considered taxable income. This is completely legal. It's built into the system, and most people never even realize it exists. Now, this doesn't just apply to real estate. It also exists in the stock market through something called margin. A margin account lets you borrow money using your investments as collateral. So if you have $50,000, you can control $100,000 in stocks. Now, at first, that might not sound like a big deal, but this is where the math starts to change. If that investment goes up 20%, you don't just make $10,000. You make $20,000. That's a 40% return on your original money. You doubled the impact without doubling your own investment. And that's the power of leverage. But, and this is important, It works both ways. If the stock drops 20%, you don't just lose $10,000, you lose $20,000. And if you're not careful, you can lose even more than you expected very quickly. That's why this tool has a reputation, not because it's bad, but because most people use it without understanding the risk. Smart investors don't treat margin like free money. They treat it like a loaded tool, something to be used carefully, deliberately, and only when the odds make sense. They don't go all in. They don't chase hype. They don't follow trends blindly. They use it on positions they've thought through, with a clear plan and a clear exit. Because at the end of the day, the tool isn't what makes or loses money. The person using it does. Now, this same idea shows up in business too, and this is where things can really accelerate. Some of the biggest companies in the world were built using borrowed money. They didn't wait until they had everything saved up. They borrowed. They invested into growth. And they scaled faster than their competitors. They took calculated risks to move ahead. And at your level, even if you're just starting, the same principle applies. Let's say you want to start something small. Maybe it's a product, maybe it's a service, maybe it's flipping inventory. You could spend years saving up money, waiting for the perfect time, or you could take a calculated step forward. You borrow a small amount. You invest it into something that produces income, and you start learning and earning at the same time. Now, does that mean it's guaranteed? No, nothing is guaranteed. But that's why it has to be calculated. If the income you generate is greater than the cost of the loan, you've created momentum, you've created speed, and speed is what most people are missing. Because most people are stuck in waiting mode, waiting to feel ready, waiting to have enough, waiting for the perfect situation. And while they wait, other people are moving, other people are learning, other people are building, and that gap keeps getting wider. Now here's the mindset shift. That separates those two groups completely. Most people look at something and ask, can I afford this? And on the surface, that sounds like a smart question. It sounds responsible. But it's actually the wrong question, because it keeps you thinking like a consumer. Wealthy people ask a different question. They ask, will this pay for itself? And that one question changes everything. Because now you're not focused on the price. You're focused on the outcome. You're focused on what it does for you. If something produces income, if it covers its own cost, if it leaves profit, then it's not an expense. It's an opportunity. But if it doesn't produce, if it takes money out of your pocket, if it loses value over time, then it's a liability. And no matter how badly they want it, they walk away, no emotion, no impulse, just logic. And that discipline is what separates people who build wealth from people who stay stuck in the same cycle. Now, before you go out and start using debt, you need to understand something very clearly. This is not a game. Debt used the wrong way can destroy your finances. It can trap you. It can set you back years. So there are rules, and these rules matter. Rule 1, only borrow for income-producing assets. If it doesn't make money, if it doesn't create cash flow, don't leverage it. No exceptions. Rule 2, always have an exit strategy. Before you take on any debt, you should already know how you're going to get out of it. What happens if the income stops? What's your backup plan? Because things don't always go perfectly. And the people who survive are the ones who plan for that. Rule 3, never over-leverage. This is where most people mess up. They get excited. They see the potential. And they go too far, too fast, borrowing more than they can handle, taking on more risk than they understand. And that's when things fall apart. Use debt to grow, not to survive. Stay in control, always. So the next time someone tells you debt is bad, take a step back and understand what they really mean. Consumer debt? Yeah, that's a trap. That's what keeps people stuck. Paycheck to paycheck, working just to maintain a lifestyle. But investment debt? That's different. That's a tool that, when used correctly, can build wealth faster than saving alone ever could. The rich know this. Banks know this. Wall Street knows this. And now you do too. So the question is, what are you going to do with it? Because information alone doesn't change anything. Action does. If this opened your eyes, then you're already ahead of most people. And if you stay consistent, if you stay disciplined, if you keep learning how money actually works, you won't see debt the same way ever again. And that is where everything starts to change.